I think one thing we can all agree on is that we've gone through a very abnormal period of time
Mhm.
where we had a frost in Brazil. We went through a period of time where temperatures were way too hot, rainfall was a bit too low,
Mhm.
and it caused us not to reach global production potential.
Right.
And I think if we think about, global production potential being like, if weather was perfect everywhere, what is the crop that you could produce? And I think it's been severely hampered over the last years.
Mhm.
Now we're in a place where I think if we look at the rainfall that Vietnam has received for the crop that they'll produce at the end of this year, going into next year, if we look at the rain Central America is currently getting, we can feel pretty good about places that have been impacted being less impacted a year from now.
Right.
Maybe you can raise a flag on Colombia and Indonesia, maybe getting a bit too much rain right now. So we need to see how that plays out. But in
Yeah.
general, I'd say that global production potential is at a bigger place than it was a year ago.
For sure.
Obviously, Brazil, right? We're in the
Mhm.
frost season right now. We're just in June. The peak of the frost season tends to be around the July 4 weekend. So even if forecasts are benign at the time of recording this, by the time somebody's watching it, maybe there is a threat.
Yep.
And so I'm not going to tell you there will or there won't be a frost. We need to monitor it. But I feel
Mhm.
there's a certain amount of risk premium that has been added in the market because of prior weather issues over the last couple of years. So I think there's a frost premium that probably is in the market. There probably also is a premium for rain and flowering
Mhm.
for September, October that's in the market. If we go through time and there's no frost, if we go through time and it rains in Brazil and the 26-27 crop is completely unimpaired and they're going to produce the production potential of Brazil, then
Mhm.
I have to imagine that the market's going to not stay at levels that are above 2011 highs, which had been
Yeah.
the highs that we had seen in 20 years.
Exactly.
But obviously, any threats to that, any hiccups in the weather patterns, and all bets can be off.
Yeah.
The second thing I would predict is that something will happen that neither of us can imagine today. I do this thing called the Sucafina Fearless Competition Contest. It was something I started at Noble and then brought over to Sucafina. And we
Mhm.
do predictions. And there's about 15 different categories, and you have to predict. And then at the end of the year, we have a winner, and we get to review what everybody predicted. And it is so funny to see how bad we are at predicting. We as humans think that we are so good at predicting things, but when you do a contest like that and you realize how bad you are, you start to have a bit of humility for your own knowledge of predicament. So I'm going to predict that something will happen between now and the end of the year that neither you or I expect. And then I guess the third one, which is maybe cherry picking off the first one, is that I do believe that the arbitrage right now at 140 cents,
Mhm.
and there's a reason why it's at 140 cents. So I'm not saying that there's a problem with 140 cents. Historically, reversion to the mean would say that that's a tough price level to maintain for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
Uh, so I would guess the same as I guess last year when the ARB was at 20 or 30 cents, I think in November last
Mhm.
year. I said that's too narrow. So it's kind of like Goldilocks, that's too narrow.
Yeah.
Maybe this is too wide. And maybe we need to see that coming down at some point in time.